Hello all and welcome. My name is Regina and I'm the Programs Committee Co-Chair of the Women's Professional Network, which serves the Thomas Edison State University and New Jersey State Library community. We are excited to celebrate Women's History Month with a series of interviews of women in the New Jersey higher education world. We are honored to be joined by Robin Walton today. Ms. Walton is the Vice President for Community and Government Affairs at Thomas Edison State University. In this capacity, she manages the university's relationship with federal, state, and local governments, regulatory agencies, key policymakers, and community stakeholders. Currently, Ms. Walton serves on the Board of Directors for the Chamber of Commerce of Southern New Jersey and on the Board of Trustees for Rowan College at Burlington County and Robert Wood Johnson University Hospital in Hamilton. She also serves on the Community Advisory Board for the Trenton Health Team. Ms. Walton earned her Master's of Science in Management and Graduate Certificate in Organizational Management and Leadership from Thomas Edison State University. She earned a Bachelor of Arts in Political Science and an International Certificate in German from Rutgers University. Ms. Walton was a 2018 graduate of the Public Affairs Council's Institute and a 2015 Harvard Kennedy School Emerging Leader Program participant. Welcome and thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you for having me. And so all that is good and well in its place, but the most important thing that I am is a mother. And so we have some remote learning going on here. So if every now and again you hear a little bit of background noise, I'm going to ask for your forgiveness in advance.
Absolutely. It's funny, a lot of the other subjects of our interviews mentioned that they were parents and, you know, how much their roles and their career motivations were inspired by their children and showing them, you know, how to be successful and how to be leaders. At least two of our interview subjects mentioned that.
It plays a great role.
We absolutely understand.
You definitely learn how to juggle a lot of balls.
Absolutely. I have a lot of respect for parents in the pandemic time.
I will say I am blessed to have a wonderful husband and we tag team everything together. So yeah, there's a lot of support there on both ends. So it's a good deal. But thank you for having me today.
No problem. So to begin, I want to ask, what excites you most about your role as the Vice President for Community and Government Affairs at TESU?
What excites me the most? So I am an advocate at heart, right? It's just always been a part of who I am and at my core, even since my days in school. And the opportunity to advocate for such an important mission, like educating people who need another chance, right? It's so critical, right? We so often talk about how our students, many of them, or most of them have some credit, but no degree. And we recognize, right, that degree is what helps get them over the hump of having a better life, right? Being greater participants in their community and in our state and nation. We know that once you seek a degree, more often than not, you're likely to contribute greater to the community you live in. And to be able to play a role in advocating for our students in our institution that plays such a critical role in educating the residents of our great state and our nation and what that means to help stabilize economies, right? And focus on so many other important things, right? We're in a pandemic, like healthcare, like cybersecurity. It is at my core and it's exciting work to do. That doesn't mean it's not really hard work to do, but it's exciting work to do.
Yeah, so it's really interesting that you say that. One of our previous interview subjects who also works at TESU was talking about, you know, how her job was this really kind of enjoying and thrilling jigsaw puzzle and kind of putting all the pieces together in the best way to serve all of her students, but also the individual students who,
Yeah.
who come to her as well.
Yeah, I resonate with that. I understand that well. I mean, my role, and so it sounds like they probably do a whole lot of internal affairs, and my role is very much external. But in order to be successful externally for the university, I have to understand the interworkings, right? I have to understand what our priorities are, where our needs lie for our students in the institution, so that when I am informing our state and federal and local governments and regulatory agencies and key policymakers and community stakeholders of Thomas Edison's needs and potential for partnerships, that I have at the core of all of that, what's priority for us? Where does our vision lie? And how and whatever it is we need or whatever it is we're doing, does it make certain that we're best serving the needs of our students? So yeah, a lot of moving pieces, and a lot of work and strategy that has to go into that. But nevertheless, the end result is something that I can always be proud of as it relates to the work that I do, but also the team that supports me.
Wonderful. You touched on this in your last statement. Is there any other reasons why there needs to be an effective relationship between the government and higher education, and specifically TESU?
Oh, absolutely. So we spend a lot of time talking about this with our federal and state government leaders. And it's because, it goes right back to a few things I've said, right? And when we talk about the link of education to stabilizing our economy, right? When we talk about the link of education to our healthcare needs and to our technological needs and advancement, every way you think about almost anything we need links back to education, right? And so with that being the case, understanding that the stronger the relationship Thomas Edison has with our elected and appointed officials, the more awareness there is, if you will, around the work we do, the partner we can become in helping to, as the governor is thinking about priorities, as our legislative leadership is thinking about priorities, even in DC, right? My department does a lot of work with not only Congress, but also with the executive branch. So whomever is the president at any appointed time, we do a lot of work with who that person and their administration around the priorities that they have in play and the work that Thomas Edison does and how it might work together. So when we're in front of them and we're saying, hey, when you're thinking about workforce development, when you're thinking about upskilling the needs of our citizens, Thomas Edison is the type of institution that's flexible. Thomas Edison provides high quality, right? Low cost options so that as you are looking at the needs of employers and the importance of being nimble, because as the needs of the nation shift, right? The priorities of the nation shift. Therefore, Thomas Edison is the type of institution that's in a place where we can respond to that. And when we're in the forefront of their minds, they're thinking, okay, as we're having this discussion, we need to call on Thomas Edison to be a part of it. As we're thinking about a partnership, we want to call on Thomas Edison to be a part of it. And that's why it's critical that we continue to have that presence, that we continue to inform and advocate on behalf of.
That's wonderful and very powerful. And this is kind of an on the fly question, but I'm curious, has the pandemic changed how we can strategically position ourselves as an organization?
Yes, but it's the case for everyone, right? I mean, look, or for most, it's the world we live in now. So absolutely. Just yesterday, when you and I were starting out, I was saying to you how I had to change my background because we had just hosted a virtual legislative day. So typically I am on the road, Dr. Hancock normally with me, right? Going throughout the entire state to meetings, to meet with our legislative leadership and the administration. Typically, this time of year, I am in Washington, D.C. on what I'd like to call marathon meetings. They sometimes are like 14 meetings, right? Back to back over a span of a day and a half to 2 days, meeting with the New Jersey congressional delegation, leadership within federal agencies, in addition to relevant members of congressional committees that matter to the work at Thomas Edison. That's all shifted because, obviously we're not doing in-person meetings. And in the work that I do, not only is it important to have really good interpersonal skills, but it's also really important in how you do it, right? It's often what, but it's more often how. And so having that face-to-face time to really talk through and ask or to position something is always critical, but that's not a possibility right now. So what we have been doing, a lot of meetings virtually. We're going back to the old conference calls and phone calls to follow up. I find myself connecting in a different kind of way, where let's have a virtual coffee instead of let's get together for a lunch meeting, right? Because often in the work that I do, it's not so transactional that it's just I call on you when I need you. A lot of it is about relationship building. A lot of it is about bringing awareness and exposure to Thomas Edison and the work we do. And that happens over time, right? So I've really been strategic about making sure that we're getting those opportunities, and not only to do, virtual meetings, but also to think about how we're still networking and fostering relationships. The virtual legislative day that we hosted twice now has been a huge success. And so we're finding it works, and it frankly, it's working well, especially for the kind of institution we are, right? So
yeah, makes sense.
Perfect sense.
You can demonstrate in action. Well, this is normal for us. This is every day.
It was great, particularly yesterday. The response we received from our state legislature after the fact was, one response was like home run. And so, okay, that's great because they recognize typically when you are dealing with people who have so many demands on their time, you get a short window of time. So, I'm sure you heard the phrase of, just give me the meat and potatoes, right? Just get to the core of the issue. You don't even have that a lot of times when you're dealing in the work I do. They just want the steak, right? Forget about the steak and potato, just give them the steak. And so you got to have that, those key points that drive home why your issues matter. And so with that being the case, we find that in this virtual setting, sometimes we have a little more time, and it's definitely worked to our benefit.
That's wonderful. So, we just talked about meeting with legislators, and obviously it's very important for you to be knowledgeable and have very up-to-date knowledge on current legislation. How do you do that? How do you manage that? And how do you stay on top of what you need to know?
Yeah, it's a lot. And I'll start this question out, answering this question by saying often people see folks that do the kind of work that I do at events, right? Or around and about, and they think, oh, I want to do that work. That seems very interesting, right? It seems very exciting, and it is, but it's also a lot of work. It's a lot of staying on top of issues. It's a lot of always ensuring that you're in tune with what's happening in the press, right? It is a lot of tracking legislation, and there is a lot of legislation. You have an idea, it probably exists somewhere in legislation. And so I work with a dynamic team of young women, Angela Chapman, who is a part of the chapter, and Lori Waszewski. And so they work really closely with me on making sure that we are tracking what's happening in the state. And we do that by using a lot, of course, of the systems that exist to help you track legislation. So that is a piece of it. But the bigger piece is that we often have to figure out how legislation that's introduced impacts Thomas Edison. And that's where the real time comes in, right? What's the potential impact, positive or negative? What does it mean? And what do we need to do about it, right? So there's a lot of work that goes into that. You want to talk about a jigsaw puzzle? It's a huge one that I don't think we have time for today. But I think that gives you a taste of how we do that work.
Wonderful. Yeah, I mean, I can only imagine. I mean, I know I'm a reference librarian at the state library, so we get questions sometimes from TESU. We get questions sometimes from state government about legislative stuff and updated legislation. And it's amazing going on the legislature's webpage and looking up bills that are currently going through or laws that have just been passed. And the variety of what you get with like a simple keyword search.
It's huge, right?
Pretty incredible. And then you're like, well, this one looks kind of right, but it's not quite because it doesn't say this.
And that's just one session. You don't want to go back into you want to talk about being a reference library into the archives, right? It's also relevant, the work that librarians do. And, you know, I spend time working with Peggy Cadigan and Kathy Pfeiffer and the team over at the state library system as well. And so trust me, the link there is strong, and the work that our state librarians do so critical to so much of the information we need for the kind of work I do. So thank you for being a reference librarian.
Well, thank you. It's nice to be appreciated. Now, does the Office of Community and Government Affairs align with a specific college or a specific program within TESU more than any other? And if yes, why?
So every single division. I am often knocking on the doors of every area to say, I need information on at some point during the year. I cannot be effective if I do not have the support of my colleagues, because my colleagues are the ones who inform, right? They are the ones doing the work. They are the subject matter experts. And so I'll give you yesterday as an example, Dr. Baum and Matt Cooper presented during the virtual legislative day our academic model and priorities, but also did a course demonstration and talked about the work of the Center for Learning and Technology. And so all of that plays a critical role in being able to inform our elected and appointed officials on the work that we're doing at Thomas Edison. If I think about, the area of enrollment management, strategic partnerships, but also military and veteran affairs, oh my goodness, plays such a critical role in the work that I do on a state level, but really more so on a federal level. When I think about administration and finance, budget, I'm tied to Chris Stringer's hip for a good portion of the year because I need him. He's our numbers guy. And if I don't understand what we need in terms of the budget, then Dr. Hancock and I can't be effective when we're making an ask. If I am most closely aligned to any office, it would be the office of the president, because my work is to inform and advocate based on the priorities that the president sets for the institution.
Wonderful. And could you tell us too, you're not only somebody who works for the university, you also got your master's degree.
I did.
From the university.
Yeah.
How has being an alumna kind of affected your work?
Yeah, a great deal. I was already passionate about the work. And my undergraduate degree, as you mentioned, is from Rutgers University. So I went to a very traditional university and had a very traditional experience at Rutgers, Douglas College, which I adore. And then started out my master's program at Rutgers, and the juggle of a demanding career and starting a family and all of my community work that I was doing in the midst of all of that made it really tough to juggle being effective at everything and still on a consistent path to a master's degree. So I decided to pursue my master's at Thomas Edison and transferred over and did a master's of science and management. And I will tell you, and I will make this very short for you, but during the time of my capstone, it was amazing because my capstone focused on crisis management. And we were in the middle of the advocacy campaign to stop the merger of Thomas Edison State University and Rutgers that was proposed by the Christie administration. And I literally was giving my presentation on crisis management the day that the budget was about to pass. And we were waiting literally moment by moment to make sure that what originally was on the table was off. And so talking about being able to take the work that I was doing at Thomas Edison as a student and translate that into real time as a professional made me even more passionate about understanding the work, the importance of the work, and the fact that this is not theory. This is just not theory of, what is in a, what is in a syllabi of what you should know in 101 or 201, right? This was real life, real time stuff that we were doing at Thomas Edison that applied to real work. And it just took me to a whole nother level of commitment to the advocacy here.
That's wonderful.
Understanding it. Yeah.
Our Alicia Malone, who we interviewed as well, said kind of the same thing. She was already working here and she was amazed at how her work and her graduate work informed, what she was doing in real time. And, how going to a school like Thomas Edison helped her accomplish what she wanted to in other areas of her life as well, like you said.
Yeah,
so
absolutely.
It's really interesting. I'm hearing this as a theme again and again and again. The more people that I talk to.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So what is your proudest professional accomplishment thus far in working at Thomas Edison State University and in your current role?
It's hard to pick one. I mean, we all have an impact every day in the work that we do here. When I think about the dynamic team that I work with in my division, there's so many things we could point to. There's so much great work we do in the local community. There's so much awareness we bring throughout the state to the work of Thomas Edison. I think that if I have to point to one thing, I would probably say the ability to stop, as I mentioned, the merger of Thomas Edison and Rutgers is probably the biggest thing I could think of. And a large part of that is because, look, I hold Rutgers near and dear to my heart, and it is a dynamic flagship university, research university, right? But Thomas Edison has a very specific mission for a very specific kind of student. And when the state created Thomas Edison in 1972, it was to fill a void, and a void that should not be forgotten, to educate adult learners who needed to finish their degree and needed that flexibility, right? But still that quality and affordability. And if that merger would have happened as dynamic as Rutgers is, our students, I believe, would have gotten lost there. And so the ability to protect them during that process is definitely a huge accomplishment, not only of mine, but I think of many others right? Because that was a team effort. Yeah, led by the president's office and my office, but that was a huge effort of a lot of people who had to quickly come together and move. And you want to talk about, pieces of a puzzle. It was like, I need you here. I need you doing this and you talking to that person and you over here with the business community and you over here with the local community and, you writing op-eds. And so, and a lot of work came out of that, but also a lot of good. There's, there is the saying that where there is challenge, there is opportunity. And it definitely presented a great opportunity for Thomas Edison too. The other one I would say is the ability to work for an organization that when you bring something to them like, hey, I am sitting on a statewide board that focuses on creating opportunity and professional development, building, if you will, for women in higher education. And I'm noticing that there are university chapters throughout the state, and I'd love to work with some of the women within our own organization to start one. And the answer is immediately yes, right? And that's how WPN came to be. We have an organization that immediately understood the importance of. And so a group of us came together. Most of us, actually probably none of us that were originally on the board are there anymore, but we were the steering committee and came together from all areas and made sure that women at every level within the organization were included, and that every division had a voice at the table at that point in time as we were coming together to create WPN. And, I remember our first event like it was yesterday, and Dr. Barbara Gittenstein, the past president of the College of New Jersey, was our speaker. And she came to speak at what we called a story of success. And we had over 100 people. It was like standing room only. There were some men there. We were like, yes, they get it too. And just a dynamic experience to start this journey. And, I will tell you that I'm beaming with pride every time I see another event come across my screen that WPN is doing, whether it's around professional development or personal development, because we want to make sure we have a holistic approach to, advancing women. So.
Wonderful. Yes, and I think I told you, I had no idea until I read your bio that you were our founder.
Yeah.
Our local founder.
So it was myself, Mindy Beavers, and Linda Meehan. Yeah. Yep.
So all of you together, and now here we are.
Yeah. Yeah.
which is absolutely wonderful. Well, I have one final question for
Absolutely.
you. What advice do you have for someone who's interested in doing something similar to what you do? Is there a specific degree that they should obtain, and what kind of strategic areas of employment and community activity should they focus on?
That's a good question. The thing about government affairs is it's different for a lot of people, right? There is not one path that leads to the work in government affairs and definitely being successful in it, although there are some foundational things. First, you need to have strong interpersonal skills, right? You have to want to connect with people and build a network and foster that. Because as much as people stay around for a long time, there also is always a lot of movement. So you have to be willing to kind of stay with the flow of who's there and also always be building relationships. The other thing that is critical to mention is you have to love to read information, pay attention to the news and what's happening around you, and think about what perspectives and views are on it, and not just your own, because what makes one successful in this work is understanding the other side. And if you're only dogmatic about your side, and that's the only place you focus, then you can't be strong in what your opposition might be thinking, right? And how to respond to that. What other priorities there are out, or in the world, and how what your priority issues are might connect into them, right? I would also say that it's important if you're going to, as you think about education, I studied political science. I think most who do work in government affairs either studied political science or communications, and probably went to graduate school and focused on public policy or public administration or law school, because a lot of it is reading and analyzing bills, right? And understanding its impact. So those are some key areas to focus on, making sure that whatever it is that you have an interest in, advocating in, you spend time understanding not only that that area, but also innovations and challenges in that area, right? Because that also makes you more effective in how you strategically think about how you position whoever it is you're working for. So those are some key things I think I mentioned. You know, look, one thing I'm a huge proponent of is always ensuring that you are staying connected into folks who are more seasoned and have been successful, but whose character resonates with you. And thinking about how can I spend some time learning from that person, because I have a desire to do the kind of work they're doing. And I will tell you that the women and men too, that have played roles in mentoring and sponsoring, because often women are over mentored and under sponsored. But the people that have done that for me have been so instrumental in helping me on my pathway and being better at the work that I do. So I also encourage women who are thinking about making a career change or moving into this work to think about who might sponsor or mentor them along the way as well.
That's wonderful. And it's interesting that you mention sponsorship too as an important part of advocating. In talking to Professor Marks earlier as part of this series, she talked about how important mentorship was, but sponsorship too.
It's a different thing.
Getting support for what you are doing and getting it promoted is also absolutely critical. So that is
how you get those seats at the table, right? The mentoring is really teaching you what to do when you get there, right? But the sponsoring is saying, I know who the right person is for this job. I know who the right person is for this board. I can't go to this event that I already have a ticket for, but I know who should be there in my place. And that's Regina, right? That's different.
Yep.
Mentoring might get you to the door and might keep you in it, but you know, how are you going to get in? What's your ticket? And so, yeah, it's as critical in my view.
Yes. And I think that's really interesting. And I think it will be majorly of use to people when they watch the entire series of interviews to see both the importance of mentoring and for that.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I want to thank you so much for sitting down with us today. This was a fantastic closeout for this year's series of recorded interviews, and we were absolutely thrilled to have you and to learn more about what you do and have you sharing your knowledge and expertise with us.
It was a pleasure, and thank you all for including me. I hope the series is successful, and I look forward to the great continued work of WPN.